welcome to F Wonderful, the only Formula One podcast on the internet. I'm Matt Jackson, and I'm joined, as always, by Brian Bailey. What's going on, bro?
Well, hello.
Well, hello.
Life is good.
Yeah. What are we drinking tonight?
Just good old fashioned gin and tonic.
Nice. Good. I got an old fashioned.
Ooh,
an old fashioned,
nice
old fashioned. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, definitely.
I had a couple of those last night.
Nice. Yeah. Week been going good?
Yeah. It's sadly not race week. So, it's not ideal, but, I'll live.
Well, at least we only have one week in between.
Yeah.
Because the 2-week thing is rough, but, you get it. There's a summer break, all that stuff. But the top of this year was brutal.
Well, yeah, it's because China was canceled. They didn't fill it. So we ended up having a month off after 3 races. And then Imola was canceled. So yeah.
That wasn't fun. And it also wasn't like we had a bunch of races that were super fun and exciting and ones we look forward to, and then a big break. It was just kind of like clunky junky, start of the year stuff, and then this massive break, and nothing really exciting until, Australia, at least in terms of looking at it. The Middle Eastern races, while they make sense and they're good for the sport, they're not usually the ones, the visual spectacles that we all enjoy, like Miami or Monaco or something like that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's like not like one of the destination races, I guess you could say. It's not. Yeah, one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Spain was fun. It was such a good race. So exciting. Everyone talking about what's exciting is overtakes and this and that, and well, there was plenty of that in this race.
What I read, there's like 107 overtakes or something insane like that. Yeah. I may be wrong. Yeah, it may be wrong, slightly exaggerating, but there was a lot.
Yeah, that's cool though. It's fun to see because it was a perfect back-to-back. It was perfect to go from Monaco, which is a completely different race, into Spain, which is the race that everyone talks about as being, if you're fast in Spain, you'll be fast everywhere. So it's kind of fun to see a completely different race happen back to back.
Yeah, two completely opposite ends of the spectrum, and they used to do testing every year in Spain forever. So they all know that track. They have a lot of data. So, and it was cool because like most of the cars had upgrades, so it was kind of cool to actually see them get used properly.
Well, it makes you wonder what Imola would have been like, because it's similar in that sense that everyone was going to be bringing upgrades and it's a proper racetrack. And it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if it had gone. But it was also kind of fun to see. Oh, my dogs are barking. It was fun to see how different the drivers and the cars reacted to the 2 different races back to back, as opposed to kind of going, Imola, Monaco, Spain. So it's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good race.
So let's talk about quali first, because of the entire weekend, what was it? There was only one section, or was there only one portion of the race that Max was not the fastest in? And it was like Q1 or something like that, or something crazy. He was.
Yeah, he wasn't fastest in Q1, but he was fastest in every other session.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would say, "Oh, they're Max fanboys. They're just gonna gloat."
No.
So shall we start?
Let's gloat.
Yeah, he was just, like I think Martin Brundle said it on Sunday. It's like we've basically got 2 Grand Prix. Max and then the rest.
And that's exactly what Lewis said. It's what George said. And at one point in time, I think even Leclerc and Lando said that we're not racing Red Bull. We're not. Well, it's also kind of become we're not racing Max.
Yeah.
Because if Checo's in form, then the car is going to operate the same way. But Max is just on a different level, and no one's racing him right now at all.
Like, yeah, he has the best car, but you see the difference in results between Max and Checo. Not dissing on Checo. I'm just saying,
no, Yeah.
The car is not everything. It helps, but it's not everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So Max was just fast as hell, like going crazy. The thing that caught my breath was when George ran into Lewis during
Yeah.
Q2, was it?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how that one happened.
Yeah.
Like
Apparently, it was just a gross miscommunication. He didn't think that Lewis was on a flying lap, and no one told him from
yeah.
the pit wall. So
Yeah. So the team just messed up there, which,
yeah,
it happens, but it's like, if anything, like you should really have an eye on your two drivers at all times.
that's what I don't understand because we don't have to dig too deeply into that because it wasn't that interesting. But what was interesting is the same thing happened with Gasly, where he just wasn't getting communicated to about what
Yeah.
was going on behind him or in front of him, and it led to two penalties as a result, which I just don't really understand where that. This is literally all these guys do
Yeah.
is communicate with the drivers, and so how are they not giving them a constant play-by-play on where things are at? Especially the track was really full, like everyone was
Mm-hmm.
out there, and there was a lot of traffic, and I don't get why they weren't communicating as well as they should have.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to happen sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes there's just no excuse for it.
They're in a position too, Alpine, where they're going to be real contenders this year for third, fourth, fifth in the constructors, and so getting their shit together is of paramount importance. I mean, Ocon is driving really well this year, like really well, and last year he was talking about how he just feels like he hasn't been in the right car, and that's why he's not been showing the way he feels he should show. And honestly, this year he is showing the way he should show. It's impressive.
Yeah. He kind of flies under the radar, and he needs to be talked about. And yeah, their car is good. I think it's the fifth fastest car
Yeah.
behind, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin. So,
But it stays together. It doesn't take a shit every week like one of the Ferraris or something.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The car is not, the car could go faster, but they have a decent car. It's just they kind of need to get their team under. Whereas Ferrari need to fix both.
Yeah. There's definitely, because we talked last week about that there's a lot of sadness around Ferrari, and it just maintains. It's just still there. People are just bummed out.
Yeah, like Leclerc just looks sad all the time, and Carlos just looks frustrated all the time. Like I feel bad for him because like that must, man, like with your lifelong dream to drive for Ferrari, and then they're just they just like, or it's a case can be made that they're sabotaging you.
Yeah, for sure.
Some days.
Yeah. It's funny. I went out on Tuesday. My brother and I got together and we went and played a round of golf, and I was wearing this hat, my F1 hat. And the threesome behind us, it was real bottlenecky. So we were just kind of always waiting. And the guy was like, "Are you an F1 fan?" I was like, yeah, definitely, like huge fan. And I was like, "What's your team?" And he goes, "Ferrari." And I was like, I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find an era where people would be like, Ferrari, is so bummed out.
Like you'd think it's like like the Chicago Cubs or something when they sucked for so long.
Exactly.
It's like when you got to say it under your breath.
Yeah. Although it's cool. He said that he and his wife go to a race every year, which is cool. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Definitely life goals. So Gasly got, knocked down for kind of impeding, and but the big surprise, and then the hilarity that ensued was McLaren doing well, with Lando qualifying third, which was impressive, but he wasn't impressed at all with himself. He was just like, no, sorry. He wasn't impressed with the car. He was impressed with himself. And he said pretty much as much. Yeah.
It was like, no, this was me. I drug this thing around the track.
I mean, he gave everything to that car, and it just it's becoming more and more clear that either he has a tremendous sense of humor, and he is okay with life going this way, or he's just over it. I can't tell which one is which.
I think he's over it. Like
Yeah.
he's like been a loyal soldier for years now and has towed the party line.
Mm-hmm.
And he is like, he's not there yet, but you can tell he's creeping up on, I'm sick of this shit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dealing with, with them bringing Danny in, and that not going well. And he just has always he's been the guy for so many years. I just think he's got a Mercedes in his future. Or there's been a little bit of talk about, would Red Bull do it? Would Red Bull do a Max Lando combo? Because you can't say a Max Lando 1-2 necessarily, because we don't know what Lando would look like in a Red Bull.
We haven't seen Lando in a good car yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the McLaren was good in 2019, 20. I mean, it was probably third, fourth fastest car, but we haven't seen Lando in a top car.
Right.
I think Red Bull would do it because they've pretty much admitted they tried in 20, like I think in 21 or no, 22. They basically admitted they tried.
Yeah.
Before he signed that extension with McLaren. It's like, yeah, I mean, I think if he like came out and was like, yeah, I'm looking, I think every team on the grid would be trying to get him.
Yeah. Because it is a contract year for Checo. And in my opinion, what little I know, and historically speaking, I just think that Max and Checo are kind of a perfect pair, because Checo's a really great driver, but he is also a pretty willing number two. I just don't think you're going to get that from a Lando Max combination. I feel like you're going to see a Danny Max situation of fighting on the grid. So
yeah, there's that, but there's also, he's a lot of people say he's a generational talent, and it's also, yeah, you might have some inter-team rivalry, but I think it would be one of those things, if he came available, I think they would be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't at least try.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the NFL draft. You draft the best player on the board, not the player that you need.
Yeah.
And that's how people like Dan Marino end up falling too far, is because the teams were all choosing what they needed, not the best player, and then he ends up being, last on the day or whatever. So no, it makes sense. I mean, I would love to see, you kidding me, to watch Lando and Max racing on the same team. That would be insane.
Yeah.
It'd be so fun.
I'm pretty sure my dogs are arguing.
Yeah. Everyone's barking tonight.
Yeah. I think if he called Red Bull up, if he called up Horner or Helmet and was like, hey, so how about that seat,
and especially considering Checo's in a place where they can move on from him, it would make a lot of sense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So let's talk about the race though, and we'll just start at the top again. I mean, Max lapping everyone except for P11 and above. I mean, the man is a monster.
Yeah, it's an absolute monster. He's another Senna, Schumacher. He's he's one of those.
Yeah. There's no denying it. And he's 24, 25.
Yeah. Yeah. He's still just a kid.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So you had added something to our notes tonight, and it's funny because I was going into the notes to add this and you had already done it.
Yeah.
We talked last week about how he uses the car like a slingshot. He whips that thing back and forth and back and forth. And that's what he was doing the whole race. And he was going over track limits the entire time. And he finally gets the black and white flag. And when his race engineer calls it in, he acts like he has no idea. It's like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like don't be dumb. And then he does the fastest lap, and GP's like, basically was like, okay, will you behave now?
Yeah. Yeah. He said, just bring it home between the white lines, please.
Yeah. It was like, now will you bring it home between the white lines? Yeah.
Yeah. It was that SpongeBob thing where it was like, Max, you've got a penalty for going outside the lines. Can you please just bring it home a few moments later?
Yeah.
fastest lap.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Well, it's funny because he was like, okay, what's the fastest lap?
Yeah.
And GP is like, you could see in his voice, he tells him, he's like, I know what you're doing. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Did he
He's
say
like,
it's irrelevant? He said something like that.
yeah,
Like,
he
it's
was like,
irrelevant, Max.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not, what you said, like, I think he said, we're not worried about that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Max is just like, ignores it. And like, okay, so what's my fastest lap currently?
Yeah.
And you could tell it's like, Max.
So funny. He's like Han Solo. He just doesn't care. He's just gonna go for it at all times.
Well, and I read an interview Horner gave earlier about it, and he was like, well, the thing is, Max and his race engineer have a relationship like an old married couple.
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly what it is. And then when Horner got on the radio to congratulate him, he said, well done, Max, congratulations. And something about, had a few penalties there, but everything went well. Like everybody is fully aware that this man can push the car to the absolute limit, to the point of being penalized for basically trying too hard and then still win the race. It's crazy.
Yeah, he said in the interview, I guess the only thing they were worried about, because he was like 22, 23 seconds ahead of Hamilton. So a 5-second penalty wouldn't have mattered unless there would have been a safety car or something and they all got bunched up.
Yeah.
So that's what they were worried about. But
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, that's a thing to bring up before we move forward with the race is how few DNFs there have been this year and how few crashes and safety cars, red flags we've seen the last few races. It's really interesting. I mean, the one common denominator is that Latifi's not racing anymore. So there's that. But everyone out on the grid, I mean, I've only been a fan since 2020, but from what I've seen, from what I know about Formula One and studying it from the past, is that you're kind of seeing maybe a moment in time with 20 really, really, really good racers, and they're racing hard, they're racing fast, but they're not fucking up. It's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, Logan Sargent, he's crashed a couple times, but I mean, Latifi crashed the car at least once a week, I think. And like,
it was so annoying.
And like, I feel like Logie Bear has a little more leeway. So,
yeah, well, his doesn't seem to be from negligent. The thing is too, like,
it's not incompetence. He's just trying.
He's and also he's new. I mean, he's brand new to the car. One thing that I had heard from a lot of people was that Latifi was like the nicest, sweetest, most wonderful guy. And so I feel bad sometimes like bashing him, but I feel like there was just a level of incompetence is a strong word, but he just didn't have it.
No, he didn't have it. He didn't. You don't think he had the intuition to be able to hang on to the car, because I fully understand. Like the Williams for the past 4 years has been a complete pain in the ass to drive. I get it, but I don't know. I mean, Russell didn't crash it all that much. Albon hasn't crashed it all that much. Logan hasn't really crashed it all that much. I feel like he's had an acceptable number of like, I'll do the British word shunts for for being a rookie, being a fairly green rookie at that, in the slowest, probably hardest car to drive on the grid.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's funny, I kind of did lump Lancey Pants in with Latifi for a minute there, because it felt like they were always kind of together and somehow crashing, and I felt like Lance just didn't know what he was doing, and I was like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, this man with a proper car is actually driving the way that he should drive. And it makes sense when Alonso's like, I mean, sure, he's sucking up to the boss a little bit, but also saying he's championship caliber. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, he can actually handle a car.
Yeah.
And Latifi didn't show that.
Yeah. With Lancey Poo, it's in there.
Yeah, it's there.
It's just, it just doesn't show up every week.
Yeah, no, it's true. Okay, so here it is, though. Mercedes. They came with their upgrades. It's all anyone was talking about. Were they going to change their trajectory going into the next? Because what we see, Alpine, Ferrari, Aston Martin and Mercedes were the ones that came in with the upgrades that everyone was talking about the most. But Mercedes looks like they made some good changes. It was very cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we need a couple more races. It's I think Ferrari underperformed. I think their upgrades maybe made it worse.
Right.
And I feel like maybe the track didn't suit Aston as much. Yeah, I don't know, but I think they definitely made a step forward. Uh, George and Russell's seemed, or George and Lewis seemed happier.
Yeah. Oh, well, they seem happier, and Lewis seems like Fernando right now. He actually looks like he's actually enjoying being a race car driver.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It almost made me like him for a second.
Yeah, it's like when he's not, when he doesn't look sad or he isn't like pouting. Yeah.
Yeah. When he's not complaining about something that you can't control, like rain.
Yeah.
But no, it was impressive. They had a great race. But you know who else had a great race? Was Checo.
Yeah, like I read, like he started 11th. Yeah, he had a bad qualifying. He made a mistake, but he still got up to 4th. I mean, yes, you could say, well, if he would qualify better, he probably would have been on the podium. It could have been a 1-2, sure, but like, still had a great race. And I saw an interview today that like it happens every year, but they're like, Checo's in danger of losing his seat after his mistake in Spain and Monaco. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Monaco wasn't great, but yeah, he made a mistake in qualifying, but he started 11th, still got up to 4th. Like, that man doesn't need to lose his seat over that.
Well, he's won 2 races in a sprint.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like the guy. I mean, he hasn't had a bad year. He hasn't had a Max year, but he's not Max.
But no one's Max, and that's the point.
Yeah.
The Alonso and Stroll, though, very solid. What was it, 5-6 or 6-7?
6-7.
Yeah. So I mean, can't be mad at that either. I mean, granted, they want to be higher, but it's fun to see like Lewis and George do well, because I want George to do well. I really do. And it makes the game better when Mercedes is in it. But then to have Aston Martin right up there with them, is somewhat mediocre in a way, but also pretty exciting. I mean, they're keeping a solid pace on the constructors.
Yeah, I feel, which Mercedes did overtake them for P2 in the constructors, but I feel like Aston Martin, like Alonso and everybody, like they've been enjoying what's happening to them. At the same time, they seem like they're staying pretty grounded about it. Because, they keep saying is like, we're kind of at least a year ahead of schedule goal wise. So, we kind of expected this to maybe start happening next year. So, that's cool. They're doing well, but they're not making like mistakes operationally with strategy, really. Nope. They don't look like a team that's, kind of like Ferrari did last year. Like they had a great car, but they weren't really ready to fight for a title.
Right.
They act like, they have a much better car this year. And it seems like they're not making dumb mistakes. Like they're ready to be there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just don't feel like of the teams that really matter in terms of competitiveness, Ferrari's really the only one making stupid mistakes right now.
Yeah.
Everyone else they're on point, man. They're trying hard. They're making moves, even within administration and engineers and things like that. Everyone is really trying to be a competitive car as much as they can. And so it's really fun to see the field expanding, because the thing is, like, Red Bull sure is way up there, but when you look at it though, kind of from the perspective of what's happened the last couple of weeks, Max is the master key in this whole thing. If it wasn't Max in Red Bull, it might be anybody's game right now, honestly.
Yeah. In fact, I saw another thing. It's like, what if Max left Red Bull? Could Red Bull keep dominating with Checo? I mean, I like Checo, but I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, it would be, they'd have Lando, they'd have somebody else, but Max is truly the best driver in the best car. And that's what's making them so dominant right now.
Yeah. They do have a monster of a car, but they've also got a monster in it.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, a monster with no emotions, because he's like So when I was in high school, there was a year where I intentionally, and I'm not toting my own horn, it's high school, who gives a shit? Um, I intentionally got a B because I just kept getting A's, and I was kind of just bored with it. I was just bored with all the A's. I think Max is kind of like, he's like that right now, where every race, we're like, great race, Max. And he's like, yeah, yeah, it was a good one. I did good.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, I won. What's new?
Yeah. I'm sure, like, because he's well on track to win his third title in a row, which I mean, we're still a long way to go, but I really think something terrible would have to happen for that not to happen at this point. Or, like Mercedes or Aston Martin to look at those pictures of the underfloor from Monaco and have a light bulb go off. But but I kind of think Max is like a racer. Like, yeah, he likes to win, but like I think he also wants to battle,
The guys on Dax's podcast were talking about, like, Max was saying that he wakes up in the middle of the night thinking more about his sim racing that he does and like the video game stuff that he does more than the races themselves.
Yeah.
And it's because that's how much of a hardcore racer he is that he races night and day and night. Mm-hmm. Real cars, fake cars, real cars, fake cars. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why, like, I really would like to see like Alonso be able to fight Max, because like those two feel very much like they're cut from the same cloth. Like, I don't think either one of them is gonna whine if they bang wheels a little bit. Like, I don't know. And they're both intelligent. I mean, I'm not saying, I know I have my thoughts and feelings about Lewis, but I don't think the guy's not a good racer. I don't think he's not an intelligent racer, but I think like a Max and Alonso, I just think, there's a lot of similarities there. So I was like, can we swap Checo and Alonso for just one race?
Yeah, see what happens.
Well, like, even if like, okay, let Max and Red Bull lock up the drivers and the constructors, and it's like, can we just swap them just for one race and put Alonso in equal machinery? I just want just do it for the fans once it's all locked up and done with.
I wish that was something that Formula One would do. This is fun because I think that it would be so much fun to watch, to do that, like make them draw a car out of the hat.
Yeah.
And if it's their own car, they've put it back and try it again, because I would love to see Max in a Haas. I would love to see Lewis in an Alfa Romeo. I would love to see what it would look like if you put Ocon in the Red Bull. Like, that would be so cool.
Yeah, well, what we're saying in 2021 is like, if they get to the last race and they're equal on points and the last race is going to decide, they have to both drive the Haas.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Yeah. And then number 2 has to drive the Williams, number 3 Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
So you go worst to first, just flip it and see what happens. Yeah.
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 You have to go to the slowest car.
Yeah. I mean, it would be really interesting to see that. I don't want Formula One to be Indy, and I don't want Formula One to be anything other than what it is. But I would love to see just a glimpse in terms of that. Let's have one race where you mix it up, one race where you learn something different, or like this little side series or something like that where all the cars are the same. It would just be interesting to see what would happen with those guys driving literally all the same cars.
Yeah. Will Power, he's an IndyCar driver, and I was reading an article from him earlier. He was saying it's like F1 is boring because you just know Max is gonna win. So it's like they really need to adopt IndyCar, and IndyCar is a spec series. They each drive the same car essentially. Teams are better than others because they're better with parts and everything and the setups. But I'm like, but that's not Formula One. Half of Formula One is you have to build the car. That's half of the game. That's what kills me. And they keep saying it's like, you need to slow Red Bull down. Like, no, part of the game is you build a fast car, and you don't get to penalize the team just because they did a better job than literally everyone else.
That's why it's called the Constructors.
Yeah.
Championship.
There's 2 championships to win.
Exactly.
And it's just like, oh, it's boring. It's like, it's not boring, guys. We're witnessing greatness here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great point. That's what is the consensus from people who really love the sport, is that we're not watching anything boring. We're watching
No.
greatness. This is the Bulls in the early 90s. This is Michael Jordan. This is Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
This is sheer dominance. So sit back, put a smile on your face, and enjoy it, because this is never going to happen again, probably in the next 20 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, it took 18 years since the previous dynasty. No, that's not that true. Well, there was the Mercedes, there was Lewis and Mercedes, but but this period, and credit where credit's due, Lewis and the Mercedes too. Like this period, this 10-ish years so far is going to be talked about. It's going to be considered a golden period.
I think the reason that it seems maybe boring or is being seen through a different lens is because we're in a new era of viewership where the visibility of Formula One has become so different post COVID. Yeah. And so people are looking at it from a different perspective. If this had been happening when Lewis was Max, then Lewis would be the biggest star in the world, because he has personality and panache, and he's a handsome guy and all these sorts of things. Max is just a sheer racer. He has no interest in being somebody's endorsement or, the face of a cologne or something like that. And so it seems boring because he's not Michael Jordan, because he doesn't have Nike Air. And so that's why it seems boring. But if you just sit back and just enjoy the sport of it, that's where I think the draw is. And that's why I love it.
Yeah. Again, it's like, guys, we're something special is happening. If you're a fan of the sport, something special is happening. So let's just,
So settle in.
Yeah.
So before we move on to Canada, Yuki Tsunoda racing a good race, and then Burp gets his penalties for impeding Zhou. What was that all about?
Yeah, that seemed harsh. It was like, yeah, he did push him wide, but Zhou could have backed out of it too, because that's I don't know. It seemed harsh, and it's like, and with Tsunoda, I don't love the guy as a person, but like he's like, going into the season, everyone was like, Yuki's gotta do something here, or he's done, and he has.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, like he is manned up, and it's like, I think it's different every week whether or not the Williams is the slowest car or the AlphaTauri is the slowest car, but like he's only got points twice, but he's been P11 3 times. Like he's always up there. I mean, I think I don't know if someone talked to him or he's just naturally developed, because like I think when Gasly left and they signed De Vries, I kind of think they thought of De Vries as like a like for like, replacement to, De Vries was going to come in and be a Gasly, and no, Yuki's, he's stepped up, and like I'm happy he has. Like, I mean, I was, I wasn't so sure, but I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I'm glad that now I'm kind of glad they gave him the chance.
Yeah, he stepped up. He's driving the hell out of that car.
Yeah,
he's handling that car better than Lando is handling the McLaren. I mean, he's really, and I think something about people expecting him to be the number 2, or maybe something in him said, no, I'm the number 1. I deserve it. Something happened inside of him that said, no, I'm going to race the hell out of this car and drive it well. And yeah, I mean, it'd be taking like the second slowest car into the points, or almost the points every race. It's impressive. And I feel like it was, I mean, the stewards are the stewards. It's their job to handle all this kind of stuff. But I just didn't, I thought I saw, and I think Zhou Guanyu's a good racer too. I just thought that he reacted in a way that maybe goaded the penalty into being a little bit, And
all the drivers, they do that on purpose because they know the stewards are listening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed kind of harsh to me. I don't know, man. Hard racing, You
It's called a race. What's his name from FIA say to
Yeah,
to
it's called a motor race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Toto was like, what?
Yeah.
It's called a moto race, Toto.
Yeah.
And
We went motor racing. And yeah, I don't know. Just you don't have
yeah.
to let the guy by. I don't know. It seemed kind of harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
There's a big discussion out there, and I don't even want to like take it there with any of this about the drivers race coming into question and all that kind of stuff, because I think that that's an American perspective. I think that Formula One has been such an international sport for so long, and granted, we have, this is the early times for a Japanese and a Chinese racer to be in, they're pioneers in such a way. But I would be hard pressed to believe that there was anything involved in those decisions other than they just felt that that was the right decision.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're not the two nationalities. Like I don't know.
I don't really play that game. But it was a good race. It was an exciting race. It was fun to see two back-to-back races that were so different.
Yeah.
And yet the guy who won still won by 30 seconds in both.
Yeah. It was funny. I was thinking about this the other day because that's like, this happened when Lewis was winning every week, and now it's happening with Max. It's like, the sponsors want TV time, but when you're so far out ahead, we never see you on TV.
No.
It's like,
No. When I was thinking about that too, actually, when we were watching the race, it just occurred to me, and I said to Sarah, when they show you the cockpit view, and then they've got that special effects overlay with the speed and the throttle and all that stuff and the braking, it's covering up the reason that those sponsors put their names in the cockpit view. And so if you're a sponsor who's right there on the halo, you're basically getting covered up every time they're in the halo. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. If you pay for a spot that's directly in front of one of the car cameras, I'm sure that's not cheap.
No. And I would not be happy if, our name was on that, and every time they showed it, they were showing you how fast they were going.
Yeah,
instead.
And covered it up with a graphic. Like, no. I paid good money for that. I want to see it.
I think the place to be as a sponsor, and I don't know how much it costs. It can't be as much as others. I think the place to be is right here on the visor. You've noticed that some of those guys are putting sponsorships right on the visor because they do those super extreme close-ups on the visors as the racers are getting ready. And I think that's the place to be because that's where you really get seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's freshen up the drinks and we'll move on to Canada.
Cool.
Euro. Not this weekend, but next weekend we have the Canadian Grand Prix, which is, for one, we have it as our backdrop here. What a beautiful location. It's got Australian vibes for sure. Yeah,
like out in the middle of the park, nice and green on an island.
Yeah,
kind of.
I don't think that this one's really as an admittedly new and inexperienced Formula Oneist. This one's never really been on my radar, other than it being in our time zone, basically.
Yeah, Oh, that's right. We get to watch it normal people time.
Yeah, I think it starts at noon my time, probably. So like 11 o'clock your time.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Which is always very exciting, and knowing that we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 races that are, basically in our time zones, plus Japan and Australia, which are kind of watchable because they happen at midnight. So 8 races, it's kind of cool.
That's 11 a.m. So it's the 3 races in the States, Canada, Mexico, and Brazil, probably. Yeah.
Mexico, Brazil. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So last year, Max was on pole and he won the race.
Yes.
Checo had a gearbox failure, I believe it was.
I think retired. it was after Monaco last year too. Like he won, and then he had a reliability problem. So that's like highest of highest to low.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, but it brings into an interesting view on how different every race is, race to race. And not just in terms of reliability or what's going on within the team, but I mean, these tracks are so wildly different, every single
Mm-hmm.
one of them. And that, to me, that was really what drew me in to watching. You had mentioned Drive to Survive and you become this huge fan, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a look at it. But all I thought racing was NASCAR, because
Yeah.
that's what we have here, literal circles. And so, these cars don't drive around in circles. They drive on
Mm-mm.
a proper racetrack, and that's what makes, I think, Formula One just so exciting. One of many, many, many reasons, but every race is just so damn different, and every culture is so different in terms of who they support and love.
Yeah. Yeah, I just the way Formula One is presented on TV is just so much more polished than
Oh yeah,
sorry, but
yeah.
than American racing. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. So with Canada coming up here, I guess Lancey Pants will be the hometown boy.
Yeah, he's the only Canadian this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think that he's French Canadian. But
No, he is, I think.
oh, he is. Oh wow.
I think they're from Montreal.
Oh well, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's always exciting. I mean, I love seeing, as I'm just not a jingoist by any stretch of the imagination. I love my country and I love everything that it's afforded me. But I'm not like this patriotic guy in some respects.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah.
And so, so that's why, like, great, I love Logan, like, good for you, but I'm just not going to be a fan of you just because you're an American. Like, be good, and American
Mm-hmm.
is next thing. I don't really care where you come from. It's just icing on the cake if you turn out to be,
Yeah.
a badass. And so, but it is fun though. Like last week, seeing Nando and Sainz getting a lot of love in their own
Mm-hmm.
country. It's cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's cool. What's that?
I was just saying, rumor has it that Madrid might be getting a race.
Yeah, second race. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
There used to be two races in Spain. They raced in Valencia and they called it the European Grand Prix.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's cool. Like when they go absolutely nuts for Nando and Sainz in Spain, and they go crazy for Max, with the Dutch Grand Prix, and now Nick De Vries too. Even though he's not quite at the same level, but I'm sure they'll go crazy for him. The Dutch fans seems to really, they show up.
Austria will be fun, just because of how utterly dominant Red Bull and Max have been.
Yeah,
I mean that whole stadium is orange.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah,
which is super fun. But yeah, so Sainz 2, Hamilton 3 last year. So it was a little bit of a different world last year. The common denominator being, of course, Max was on pole and won it. But I don't remember the race that well. I watched some of the highlights, but nothing really stood out to me as it being like an exceptional race. Had 3 DNFs and just some reliability stuff across the board, but it wasn't anything to write home about, I don't think.
No, yeah, it wasn't one of the more exciting ones from what I remember.
And I don't think the track has any changes or upgrades to it this year.
No.
Yeah. So it'll just be fun to have something kind of in North America for us to enjoy. But a race not dissimilar to what we saw in Australia or Spain. So is it a question, setting aside any potential eventualities of unreliability or issues like that, is Max going to not pole and win?
I mean, if the car holds together, I would bet money on it. He's just on form right now. He's on another level. Like, I think the whole entire grid is pretty much resigned to that in a way,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be, similar results to Spain. I think it's a kind of a similar track to Spain. I think, at least in you can overtake, it's a fast track from what I remember. Yeah. I don't know. I think, like, if Max is going to lose, I think, I don't think he's going to get beat. I think the car, he might, if it has a reliability issue or something.
That's exactly what I was thinking, was that this is not an issue of Max losing, because we even saw him make mistakes in like qualifying to still get pole, and he makes mistakes and he still wins. And so I think what we're going to see is it just has to be something happening with the car for him to not
Yeah.
win, you know?
Yeah. I think Max was confident before, but I think since, ever since he won his first title, like it just, confidence breeds confidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
absolutely. He's just so in the zone. No one, I don't think, well, I mean, he's Tiger. It's like, when Tiger was Tiger, he was so in the zone that you saw it in his eyes. There was
yeah.
no one who could beat him.
Yeah.
He hit his upper limit and wasn't able to continue, after some personal setbacks and things like that. But then came back to form because he's just great, because he's just a
Mm-hmm.
champion. And I think that's Max. We're just watching the next iteration of Michael Jordan right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an all time great. So, yeah, like I said, I think the rest of the grid is resigned to that, because they all know the Red Bull car is good in general, but then you've got him, him wheeling it. So, yeah, I mean, I think if everything, goes right mechanically, I really don't think he won't, you know, he doesn't always pull, but I don't think that matters. I think he'll still win. But I kind of think he'll be on pole. Um,
Well, what race was it that he wasn't on pole recently? Was it
Miami.
Australia? Miami, yes. And well, it's great. I only have one car that I have to pass. It's like, he doesn't even care. He's like, great. That's only one car. Cool. It's easy,
Yeah. I just
moving
have
on.
like, I'm like microscopically concerned about the other Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. He's dry, he's witty, he's funny. I really want to watch the documentary. I know it's all in Dutch.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
But it'll be fun to watch. But he's one of those guys that, I think it would be an honor to do his documentary after his career is over, just to look back and see what he accomplished.
Yeah.
So obviously Max is one. Oh, we got that on pole. 2-3 though. 2-3 is getting really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about quality or the
We're talking about the race.
The race.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna go Max pole. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna Checo 2, and I'm gonna go Georgie boy P3.
Hey, nice. Yes, I was gonna do that too, except I was going Hamilton 2, Checo 3. I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm just curious to see. I mean, Hamilton's racing great. He's happy. He's having a good time. The Mercedes is it's clearly faster than the Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Ferrari's just a bucket of bolts when it wants to be. I just think we're going to see Mercedes back to form. No one's going to catch Max, barring any sort of like craziness, but and they're not going to catch Red Bull. But it's fun to see Mercedes back in the running. Not only because, but especially because I really love George. I think he's great.
Yeah, I mean, I like, again, Lewis, but I'll be much more of a Mercedes fan when that's George's team.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's just how I feel about it. But yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I want Max to win. I want Red Bull to win, but I'm also a race fan, and I want to, it won't hurt my feelings if we have some battling again.
Absolutely, definitely. And so, okay, so to wrap this portion up, who's our dark horse?
Dark horse?
Yeah, who's the dark horse? Who's gonna get in the points that we didn't expect, or higher up in the points we didn't expect?
That we didn't expect. I'm gonna will it on. I want Yuki in the points.
Hey, there we go. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I want him at 8th or better. Like, I think it would be amazing to see Yuki at 8th or better, because I think he deserves it. He's racing like a motherfucker. Let's go.
Yeah, like, I was down on him, but he's won me over now, because like I didn't really believe he was going to step it up, and like I said, I was happy proven wrong. So now, like, I want at least a P9.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I think that, we've mentioned Bottas, we've mentioned Alex Albon and a few guys, but they just haven't proven that they're anywhere near. But Yuki is proven that he's somewhere close to competitive with a really slow car.
Yeah, and it's tough again with we essentially have 4 top teams in my top teams. I mean, teams that can that have a shot, at least have a shot at the podium every race. So we have 4 now, and that only leaves 2 places. So no, I think Yuki, like I'm very pleasant. I'm very happy and like very happy, to be proven wrong that he's getting it done. So
Yeah. And I think the other one I put in that category is Zhou Guanyu. I think that he's proving himself to be a very good driver in a very terrible car, and he's competitive, and it's impressive.
And he hardly ever has incidents either.
No, not at all. So it'll be interesting to see though, kind of where Alpine and Aston Martin end up next week.
Yeah.
Because there's so much conversation about so many things. They're still kind of flying under the radar, and I think that Ocon is going to come out at the end of the year in a place that we didn't expect him to be at the beginning.
Yeah, I wonder if one of the other teams is going to try to snap Ocon up, because I think he has 1 more year on his contract.
Who would, do you think, ideally pick him up if that were the case?
I could see Ferrari doing it.
Oh wow.
Because I
if
just
Leclerc leaves, or if they let Sainz go.
I mean, I don't think they're going to let Leclerc. I think they're going to fight like hell to keep Leclerc. But yeah, I think if anything, like Sainz has maybe done like better results wise the last couple of races, but he's just kind of a mess, I think. And I don't know. I think everyone knows, like, yeah, Sainz is a good number 2, but like Leclerc's another one that's like, we can't let him go. I could see Ferrari trying to get him. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Lance. And it's like, he's I don't think he's going to go anywhere unless, like, Papa Stroll's, board of advisors, like, okay, it's time.
Yeah. He's the guy though with all the money. It's just he's not just a tiny player. It's going to have to be his decision. And I think that Lance has shown that he can be a competitor. And I think, if they stay in the top 7, 8 race after race after race, I just don't see Lancey Pants going anywhere.
Yeah, this is the only thing is, like, Lance is part of the reason that Mercedes overtook them in the constructors.
Yeah.
But the thing with Lance is, like, every time that we're like, oh, it's time for Lance to go, then he pulls one out of his ass.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He suddenly magically drives with one hand, basically.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But like Ocon, it's like, I feel like, he needs to. I think he deserves a little more respect, because, like I said last week, it's like, he driving the Alpine, he needs like an opportunity.
Yeah.
He needs someone to have reliability or whatever. But when that happens, like, he almost always delivers on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he doesn't squander the opportunities. So
yeah. Well, we've got an amazing field of young, impressive drivers mixed in with some, older guys like Fernando and Lewis, and then some guys kind of in the middle like Checo. And so it's kind of fun to see this kind of broad swath of the future of F1. We don't see a whole lot of, changing of the guard happening anytime soon, because Lewis wants to keep going, and who knows, Fernando is like, he might just go till he's 50.
Well, it's like they're talking about who's going to be driving the Aston Martin in 2026 when they have Honda engines. And I'm like, I wouldn't bet against Nando.
Right. Absolutely. Even after all the controversy about, what he said about the Honda engine at one point in time, I think that that's water under the bridge, and they're going to be okay with that.
Yeah. I think people have really short memories in sports, especially, it's like, yeah, he said that shit, but if he produces results, I don't really care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's going to be fun. It's exciting. It's a bummer we have a week off, but something to look forward to for the next one. So anything else to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I just, I can't wait to have races every week. I know that would kill everyone, but
yeah, all these elite athletes just 20 pounds lighter at the end of the year or something like that. But yeah, so it's exciting. So I think what we'll do is we'll take next week off, and then we'll catch you guys after Canada, and we'll talk about all the exciting, hopefully exciting stuff that happens there. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Catch us on the YouTubes, Apple, Spotify, all the things. Subscribe on Spotify if you have a second, because that helps the whole monetization.
Yeah.
But all three of you that are listening, we appreciate you so much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hopefully they double. We have 6.
Yeah, we'll take 6.